Welcome to the At the Coalface podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the At the Coalface podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the podcast today, Jason Wyatt from Marketplacer. He is the co-founder and executive chair, and well, for a long time was CEO as well, or I think is still the CEO. So welcome to the podcast, Jason.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks so much for having me as part of your community today.
It's absolutely my pleasure, mate. And look, Marketplacer, I think I told you before we jumped on, I've been trying to get a hold of you for a while, just because I've been watching the absolute explosion of marketplaces over the last couple of years in Australia, in particular, where you are based. And in particular, Marketplacer, it feels like you guys are in the news literally every other day with some new retail brand or standalone marketplace launching on your technology, your SaaS marketplace platform technology. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on board today.
Oh, no, wonderful. Look forward to the discussion.
Great stuff. Marketplacer is a SaaS marketplace platform. And for those that don't know, I'll let you get into the detail of it. But basically, you provide the technology that if someone wanted to go build an Amazon-like experience, a multi-vendor marketplace, like an Amazon or like a Catch, then you provide the technology to do that. So your platform provides the front-end customer experience technology, so where customers can navigate around a website like an Amazon type of experience, find products, search products, add them to their cart, regardless of whether those products come from multiple merchants or one merchant. They can check out. You provide the payments infrastructure, but you also provide the back-end infrastructure, which means the management of the merchants themselves that have to integrate and list their products and their catalog on the website, the payouts, the split of payments for multi-vendor orders, and also managing things like commissions and all the other things that have to go along with this marketplace experience. You provide a turnkey plug-and-play SaaS solution for building marketplaces. Is that right?
That's a pretty good summation, Jason. Do you need a job in our sales division? I think you've nailed it on the head. But ultimately, what I really think we provide our clients is the ability to grow. And that's what a marketplace strategy implemented really effectively does. There's not many strategic opportunities for retailers or brands or wholesalers, media organizations or telcos or banks. In a digital way, they can plug a solution in and really substantially grow. So it's the next big thing behind commerce, and we're just so fortunate that we've been at the game for over 10 years now and have a lot of experience, not just only technology.
Well, you're living right at the pointy end of it, and I've oftentimes said that on other episodes and in other sort of content, when people are asking me about this crazy marketplace level of adoption in Australia, I've never seen anything like it literally anywhere else in the world. Australia seems like it's got more very popular marketplaces and many niche marketplaces that are smaller than that. It almost feels over marketplace in some regards. And I know you would dispute that, and rightly, because you're providing technology, but man, it just feels like, particularly over the last 5 years, that in Australia, you've got that top 10 level of marketplaces. You got Amazon, you got eBay, you got Catch, you got a whole bunch of that top tier that almost everybody in Australia knows. Then now you've got this, over the last couple of years in particular, you've got the largest retailers in Australia wanting to further monetize the massive amounts of traffic that their sites are getting, the likes of Myer, the likes of Bunnings, the likes of Surf Stitched, and the list goes on and on. And now you've got a new deal with Barbecues Galore is about ready to launch their new marketplace with outdoor stuff to complement their core barbecue and outdoor cooking ranges. So this is really, this has gone from almost a fad in other parts of the world to an absolute entrenched trend in Australia.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think if you go back in as a history lesson as to why really classifieds and marketplaces have been historically so popular within Australia is probably due to the sheer size of the country and for a better of a word, a lack of population within it. Historically, the discovery process of products and finding great deals on businesses like the Trading Post and buying and selling, it was really born from those classified businesses, whether it was seek.com.au, looking for jobs, which for the United States folk listening, that's the equivalent to monster.com, or whether it was car sales, which is the equivalent to cars.com in the United States. It's that ability to discover and find in a single destination, which is satisfying the ease, convenience, and choice problem, which a lot of sort of consumers have when they deal with brands. And I think that's what a marketplace does really neatly. So it's evolved from these larger niches where there's high fragmentation, lots of purchase consideration behind it, to actually probably moving it more now into a world of the consumer and saying, my consumer's in a mindset that they want to buy from my brand, but they're in that journey. What else can I put in within that purchasing journey that actually significantly improves the customer experience? And then from an operator, which is really a retailer or a brand, they're saying my superpower in market, it's not necessarily my technology stack or my widget that I've plugged in that improves my conversion by 0.001%. My superpower is my customer. And what else? That's my real unfair advantage in market. And what else can I sell them that I don't necessarily have to stock within my warehouse to significantly improve their customer experience and make my brand more important in that customer journey?
Yeah, no doubt. And as a consultant, I do get asked this reasonably often. Hey, we're running Shopify or running BigCommerce. Hey, is there an app out there we can just bolt on and we can take on a few other vendors where we don't have to stock the product, and it's effectively almost like a drop ship order. The order comes through and then it just gets ferried off to the ultimate vendor and they do the delivery and the customer service and everything off the backside of that. And then you've got, sure, absolutely, there are some apps that can plug into a Shopify or a Magento or whatever to turn them into a bit of a multi-vendor marketplace, but there's so many gaps in those approaches. Obviously, there's multiple approaches to becoming a marketplace enabled as a retailer or as a standalone marketplace. And I do get demand or questions or requests for that as part of my consultancy work. And oftentimes there's no good, easy solution for merchants out there outside of technology like yours, because if you look at a multi-vendor marketplace app for a Shopify or a BigCommerce or a Magento or whatever, they really only help to manage very narrow aspects of running a marketplace. And as you rightly point out, going well beyond the tech, a merchant that is either running a standalone marketplace or as an adjunct to their wider retail business and as an addition to their wider retail business, they have to think about so much more than that, right? They have to think about how can they make it easy for those other merchants to even get their catalog integrated into their marketplace. They have to think about, okay, how are we going to pay these guys out? How are we going to potentially pay a commission on sales if that's the model? How are we going to charge listing fees? How are we going to support all the different payment types and payment methods that end customers want to pay with today? And then when we start thinking about more complex marketplace models like B2B, there's even more considerations, right? So around tiered pricing, and there's just so much complexity that is involved even before you get to a place where you're ready to start selling on the front end and thinking about the customer experience. And then once you get there, then of course the marketplace has to think about making sure that they grow the demand side and the supply side of that marketplace in tandem, a relatively similar growth rate. So you don't have a whole bunch of merchants on there and no traffic. And by the same token, you don't want customers who first start to go to the marketplace to not have anything to buy. And they go, well, I'll never come to this website again because there's hardly anything here. So there's a lot from a marketplace strategy perspective. There's a lot to consider other than the pure tech side.
I think you've nailed it on the head. And I'll really break that down into two sort of core topics, if you like. The first is around marketplaces from the outside can be perceived as complex from all of those great points to which you just raised. So yeah, how does a firm like Marketplace and its great system integration partner actually help and guide you through those stages of forming, but not only forming, but most importantly, growing a successful marketplace strategy? And then the second part of that is, if I'm an existing e-commerce business, how can it be easy to implement one of these strategies? I think the On the first question around how marketplaces really developed and lent in around all of the complex problems, is what we've actually developed is what we call a marketplace, a platform for growth. So this is where over an 11-year journey, we've grabbed all of our knowledge, our mistakes, our learnings, and we've come up with a really good playbook on the things you need to consider, the things you need to walk through with your implementation partner, not only from a technology perspective, but a process and organizational charts, some business case modeling around creating and growing a successful marketplace. So that's something that we have done heavily over a long period of time. And then the second part of that question is, hey, if I've already got an existing e-commerce business, you might not wake up and say, I want to be a marketplace, but you might want to wake up and say, I want to improve my customer experience. And how can I turn my existing e-commerce business into a marketplace strategy where you can start to sell products from third parties that are delivered from third parties? And that's really where Marketplace has heavily focused over the last 3 to 4 years. So nearly all of those case studies and examples you spoke about before, Jason, they were all what we consider our connected go-to-market strategy. So this is if you're a Shopify Plus store, you're on Adobe Commerce, you're on Salesforce Commerce Cloud, you're on Commerce Tools, and you want to turn into a marketplace. We consider that a connected marketplace strategy. So we've actually got pre-built cartridges now, or apps for Shopify, Adobe, and Salesforce Commerce. And if you're a larger enterprise on Commerce Tools, we've got some incredible integration patterns to make that a lot easier. This is all around making it easier to solve all of those problems that you walk through. So what we effectively do now is plug into those systems. So instead of taking maybe a higher risk project with a larger implementation fee, what we've really tried to do is improve this easy on-ramp and go-to-market strategy. So not only do we solve the integration layer with your existing business, but we solve all of that knowledge gap to really get you live, and most importantly, start growing that next big strategic thing behind your business.
Yeah, the strategy behind that is there's a lot of losing strategies. We've seen Creme Marketplace. We've seen a number of other marketplaces that were announced that they were going to go live and they were stillborn and never got trading. Or we've seen a lot of marketplaces that went live but then failed because they either didn't meet the supply side or the demand side, or they didn't grow those in tandem, or they had a terrible merchant onboarding experience, or any number of other horror stories. And I'm sure you have many more horror stories than I do over the last 11 years of brands doing it both really well and some of them doing it absolutely atrociously and failing miserably. And what I can see, and correct me if I'm wrong here, what I can see in terms of approaches to deploying a marketplace by a retail brand, for example, I see one of 3 approaches that seems to be becoming much more common in the market. One is they'll stand up a marketplace as their primary customer web interface, and they become a supplier plugging their catalog into that marketplace just like any other merchant. But of course, they get 2 bites of the apple because, of course, they're effectively a 1P merchant instead of a 3P merchant on their own marketplace. And so they effectively turn their entire web experience into a marketplace experience whereby they are just one of many suppliers underneath their umbrella brand. Then we see another model, which is, hey, we're going to have a link off of our main website, which is to our marketplace, which is very clear that, hey, here's our main website, here's our marketplace site. Never the twain shall meet in terms of when you're on the marketplace, it's got a slightly different look and feel, that there are other merchants selling there that are going to be fulfilling the products. And it's a very clear delineation between the umbrella brand or the parent brand experience and the marketplace experience, and they're very separate. Then in some cases, even in that model on the marketplace side, the parent brand may be selling in that marketplace as well. Then we have this third model, which I see is becoming a little bit more common, which is that kind of hybrid model where we hide the fact that we even have marketplace merchants, or we make it really hard to tell. And I think Meijer is probably a good example of that. They started out with their Meijer Market, and that was a very clear separate experience to the main website. Now they've integrated that experience directly into their main website. And it's actually hard to tell the difference between a marketplace seller and a 1P Meijer supplied product. Now, I have my own thoughts on the pros and cons of each of those experience layers and the brand positives and negatives of each of those experiences. But are those the three primary models you see your customers implementing when using your technology?
We probably, if you take a technology lens on it, you can look at it in a slightly different way. And then I'll talk about the application to the technology. Just because of our history in marketplaces, we've actually got a complete full stack. And that includes a front-end consumer experience. So effectively, by using Marketplace, you don't actually need another commerce platform within there. And that's been really good for businesses that have a really complex technology ecosystem to be able to quickly spin something up and prove out their theory. The second very clear path is this pre-built connector strategy, where you already got an existing e-commerce engine and you want to plug Marketplace into it. Then the third is where it's a complete headless model. So where you can build your own piece of middleware and plug it into, say, a custom e-commerce engine, or if you want a really custom integration into your existing e-commerce engine, you can just grab our GraphQL API layer and build directly into it. And there's probably 4 case studies I can walk you through. So Maya is a great example. The Maya market was on the Marketplace front end to start with. And that's because they wanted to prove out the hypothesis that it was one of their core growth strategies. They wanted to get to market really quickly with less risk around it. And that was some 3 or 4 years ago, to prove out that it was easy to onboard sellers and their customer cohorts wanted to and were very comfortable with the items being shipped. Once that validation point was proven, like any business, Maya needed to then go and really leverage their unfair advantages. The unfair advantages in this case was the fact that they had a huge cohort, a huge traffic base going to maya.com.au. And the easiest way to supercharge not only the marketplace, but the entire e-commerce business was to plug the Marketplace engine and all of its sellers into maya.com.au. My view is there shouldn't be a split experience if you're really going to scale at a significant rate. Often you'll find is when they split the experience, it's historically been due to legacy systems that haven't enabled them to really prove it out without a huge capital cost up front. So then the second one might be like a Surf Stitch. So Surf Stitch are on Salesforce Commerce Cloud, same as Barbecues Galore. They leverage our connectors and they plug the Marketplace engine into it. And in a really short period of time, with an easy on-ramp approach, they were able to test and validate, and most importantly now scale their Marketplace offerings. As we've got better, as the platforms have got better, our integration patterns within them have got better. So it's now what previously may have been maybe 3 years ago, more of a daunting exercise to plug a Marketplace platform into your e-commerce engine. It's now seamless and frictionless. And that's the ultimate goal, is how do we get a Marketplace live within not hours and not days, is the ultimate goal of Marketplacer. And then the third sort of layer is what we call our headless solution. Because we've got a full e-commerce engine, because we've got all of the elements behind building a Marketplace out, we can actually go to market with a complete and holistic API suite. And that includes even the seller portal, the shopping cart, and everything you need from a technology perspective to build out a marketplace. And why this is such an interesting space for the future is because it gives so much flexibility. So you can take the functions you want or features that you want, and you can integrate them into your own custom front-end experience. And Fishbrain, which is the largest fishing app in the world, is a really great example of that. They had a huge community online, predominantly in the United States, as a fishing cohort, but they wanted to integrate Marketplace directly back into their iOS and Android applications. So they simply grabbed the suite of Marketplacer APIs, built a custom front-end experience on top of them, and it's deeply integrated natively within their application. To summarize those sort of 3 paths, is what we're finding in market is that the tester hypothesis might use our full stack. That if you're an existing e-commerce business, 100% you should deeply be thinking about leveraging your unfair advantage, nail a customer experience, and plug into your existing e-commerce engine. And then the third element is if you've got a really custom experience that you're building, you can build that with the complete freedom from not only from the consumer, but a seller experience as well.
Totally makes sense. And so when you talk about your out-of-the-box connectors with, say, Salesforce Commerce Cloud,
yeah,
is it always following that integration pattern whereby your connector facilitates a catalog of merchant products and the merchants themselves, obviously from Marketplacer into that core e-commerce platform and the existing e-commerce experience? Or is it bidirectional, meaning if I'm a Barbecues Galore, for example, and I want to start out by injecting my products from Salesforce Commerce Cloud into Marketplacer as if I was just another merchant on my own marketplace, then I can do it that way, or I can bring products from Marketplacer into my platform. Is it two-way integration, or is it really, no, we build out our design patterns to be, when we build a connector, it's to get all of the catalog products and information from Marketplacer into those e-commerce platforms to where it's a blended experience on the existing e-commerce experience that the brand has built?
Another great question, Jason. You've definitely done your research, which is sensational. There's two sort of topics if I unpick that. The first is, when creating a marketplace, it's all about stocking the shelves. And how do you make it more easy to stock the shelves? And how do you make it more easy for your sellers to just seamlessly process marketplace orders? Marketplacer comes out of the box with a product that we call mConnect. So this is a seller connection platform into Marketplacer. And it comes with a series of pre-built connectors: Adobe Commerce, BigCommerce, Neato, Shopify, Retail Express, Lightspeed from point of sale integration. And we're continuing to launch more and more of those seller connection apps every single day. And the purpose of these are, if you're creating a marketplace, we just want to make it so easy for you to connect your seller community to the point where they actually don't even have to log into a seller or make any enhancement. The information is bi-directional and just flows. So if you're a seller and you sell something on the Maya marketplace and you're a shop and you use Shopify as your e-commerce engine, we just want you to process orders like normal. And then at the end of the month, Maya pay you. So it's a completely frictionless experience. So that, I think, addresses a lot of the questions around seller connection and that instant seller connectivity. The second point of that is if I'm an existing Commerce Cloud customer, and I think you use Commerce Cloud as an example, it's very similar patterns for all platforms. I'm an existing Commerce Cloud customer and I want to use Marketplacer. So I want to start to tap into all of that feature and function and capability to grow at a faster rate. And this is where our pre-built cartridges really kick in, because there's so many consistent patterns and so many learnings that we've had over the journey. So within the cartridge, for example, your categories on Salesforce Commerce Cloud will automatically sync into Marketplacer. Your shopping cart, when you download the cartridge, will be able to handle a multi-vendor checkout scenario. Your front Salesforce Commerce Cloud reference architecture will be able to handle the concept of sellers. So we've made all of those, the majority of the major tweaks to significantly speed up you adjusting your Commerce Cloud instance to start your marketplace journey with less risk, more pre-built technology, so you can get live faster.
Yeah, that ease of use is definitely a really important factor and function of this whole marketplace success, because I'm guessing, I don't know exactly how, and maybe that's a really great point to jump into next, is how you bill merchants for your service and for your platform. How do you guys make your money, basically? And how do merchants start to build out a business case that says, okay, we think we can do X million or X number of items, or we can onboard X number of merchants into our ecosystem over the next 6 to 12 months. And we think this is a reasonable target based on our modeling. And so therefore, when we match that up with the fees that we have to pay Marketplacer for their SaaS platform, this all of a sudden starts to make economic sense. So how do you start to work through that type of modeling with your merchants to say, hey, we're gonna onboard you into the platform with our out-of-the-box integrations, which is going to make it easier for you to adopt our technology, but it's also going to make economic sense too. So how do you start working through those discussions with merchants?
Yeah, great question. And that's exactly what Marketplacer has developed in the platform for growth. So that platform for growth is really broken down into 5 key strategic buckets. The first 2 is your strategic analysis, understanding the why it makes sense for you or not, because it may not make sense for you. And then as part of that process, we go through strategic planning, strategic analysis, and we actually, with partners, produce a commercial model. And that takes in the huge knowledge and experience that we've been able to gain over a long period of time to build the core factors in building out your commercial model and realistically a business case around the success of a marketplace. It takes into considering your average order values, your traffic, your conversions, your potential traffic and conversions of the third-party product you're trying to put on. It takes into consider category-based commission levels or a cost-plus type of modeling, that depending on how you want to go to market. And really the outcome of that sort of first session is you'll get a flavor of whether it makes sense for you. And that's the most important thing. And then you'll get a really good flavor based on a lot of experience as to how you'll be able to charge in market, what makes sense for suppliers or sellers, and is the lemon worth squeezing? Is the opportunity for you in your business versus doing the 100 other ideas that I'm sure lots of people have for you? Is this lemon actually worth squeezing, and is this lemon the next core growth strategy for your organization? I think when you walk through that process, it really absolutely fundamentally helps you.
Yeah, obviously you bring, like any agency, right? An e-commerce agency that does web builds. They've got these not only design patterns of the stacks that they work with, but they've also got, when they start going through discovery, it soon becomes pretty apparent that whether this is going to fly or not, whether this makes sense, whether this replatform or whether this massive upgrade or whatever it might be, whether this starts to make sense commercially for the business or not. And certainly COVID has made the business case for a lot of businesses where maybe before it was marginal, now it's a must-have. And I'd love your thoughts on a couple of areas. One is, I'm guessing, and you can validate this or not, that COVID has put a rocket ship under your business, just like almost everything else to do with e-commerce. It's just accelerated everything just wildly, particularly down in ANZ, as our countries seem reasonably hell-bent on keeping us locked down forever. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because once we do slowly start to not be as locked down as we are, what do we think that impact is going to have on the COVID-fueled rocket ship called e-commerce? But secondarily, there's this whole idea in the market around build versus buy, and that's a big question for a lot of merchants, and it applies to marketplaces as equally as it does, hey, do I go out and build a from-scratch e-commerce experience, or maybe a headless experience versus a monolithic off-the-shelf customized experience on, say, Shopify or BigCommerce? So similar questions to be asked. But I guess for me, what I'm wondering is, I've scoped out building a marketplace from scratch before for merchants, and it is just so obscenely expensive, so obscenely complex, and so obscenely time consuming. It feels like Marketplacer would be an absolute no-brainer if the business case for a marketplace full stop adds up in your business. It feels like the time to market, or the greatly reduced time to market, or at least the opportunity to prove out the marketplace model in an almost turnkey fashion, would completely preclude trying to bolt on an app or something like that to your Shopify store, or going and building something from scratch. It would seem to make that almost insane. It feels like almost insanity compared to going with a platform like Marketplacer. And then how do you see this marketplace opportunity developing over the next 12 to 18 months?
I'll talk to the first question first, which was all about our growth. And during COVID, I think that we're incredibly humbled. And I think if you look at most sort of startups, they're an overnight success. That instantly they get real market traction in there. But there's been 10 years really hard work by a huge and devoted team, a community that's far beyond just the team that works for Marketplacer, that contribute to the Marketplacer journey. The results we may be seeing today, it's been a real team effort over a long period of time, and I'd like to thank everyone who's been part of that. But we are seeing some tremendous, and we only see results when our customers see results, because effectively the way that we price our customers is we're flexible in pricing, but effectively it's a software as a service fee on a monthly basis, and then we take a percentage of the gross turnover of the actual marketplace. And depending on your size and your industry and how it fits, that's where the flexibility can come in, to make sure that we have a shared vision together collegiately, that there's joint success in what we achieve. From a build versus buy, I think there's just some great recent case studies, to be honest, around the complexity that it takes. We've spent a huge amount of money. We've got an incredible team, a very large team. We've got a huge amount of experience in the space, and it's taken us 10 years to get to where we've got in our journey today. And we've got a long journey to go ahead of us. We think it's only the beginning. But to catch that up, I think is really difficult from an individual company trying to build a bespoke piece of software. And the testament to that is is very clearly the largest retailer within the APAC region, being Woolworths, chose to use Marketplace to create their marketplace. They deliver to every single Australian household, or could deliver to them on a daily basis. And then when they were assessing the build versus buy, they didn't even go down, like they had a quick assessment. They quickly looked at the build capability, and they just realized that it was going to be too costly, too risky, and 100% certainty it was going to take too long. So we're pretty proud to win the largest tender in the region to build out what's going to be an incredible consumer proposition with the everyday market that deeply integrated into woolworths.com.au. And then the second case study, which is not a usual one for us, but it's where an organization has tried to build it themselves, and that would be Qantas and their frequent flyer store. So that organization, talk about resilience during COVID, has done an extraordinary job of finding other avenues except flying planes. And they've done, with commerce tools in the front end, they've done an incredible job that you can go onto qantas.com.au and you can buy anything using your frequent flyer points. And they've got to about 70 to 80 suppliers and vendors within their community. And then I think some of the problems they were having was just the ability to truly scale it for all of those reasons, Jason, you've been talking about all day around calculating commissions and cost plus models and live inventory updates. Like Marketplace, that comes out with an event-based architecture, so it's a live situation, which is incredibly complex to produce. And all of the payout calculations and the inventory syncing and the imagery syncing and all of I want to be able to vet my products before they go live on the marketplace. And then I want to be able to process marketplace returns and do line item adjustments. It gets very complex very quickly from a build versus buy perspective. And typically we may not have won every tender all over the world, but we've never lost one to a build versus buy. So, I hope your community can appreciate the hard work that
it becomes pretty obvious when you look at your roster of successful, client relationships and even just the featured ones on your website. You got a lot of big banner brands sitting underneath the marketplace or umbrella. So congratulations, well done. Now, we're slowly starting to come to the close of our time together, but there's a couple of other things that leap to mind, and that is the absolutely explosive growth internationally of B2B marketplaces. And less than ANZ, there's no B2B marketplace that I'm aware of in New Zealand. And there's only one in Australia, being TradeSquare, which launched late last year. Is TradeSquare a marketplace or platform-based customer, or did they build their own, or did they use an alternate marketplace platform? And what, just generally speaking, is your sense around B2B marketplaces? Because I think B2B e-commerce is probably 5 to 10 years behind traditional, and from a maturity perspective and adoption perspective, probably 5 to 10 years behind B2C e-commerce and D2C e-commerce. I feel like marketplace adoption by B2B businesses is even further behind. So I'd love to get your thinking around the B2B marketplace opportunity.
I think it's huge. If I want to add a single word to see the opportunity, I think so. Marketplace that definitely powers some B2B marketplaces today. There's a couple of good examples. In New Zealand, Famoi it's actually a flower B2B marketplace. So it's a single destination where your florist can go, instead of going to the flower market, they can buy from all of the growers in a single destination. Within this region, within Australia, we run Acro, which is actually a construction-based marketplace. Not only are they linking up all of their sort of distribution outlets for scaffolding, but they've recognized the fact that they've got so much of the construction industry to buy from, that buys from them. So what else can they buy from that they don't have to stock themselves, that they can put on their one account? We're seeing bike distributors, as an example, saying the power of my actual community is my relationship with my stockist or retailer. And then I get inundated by people every single day of the week trying to get me to distribute more items. But why do I need to stock those items to be able to distribute them? They can come from another warehouse. As long as I can track it, I can have a good customer experience for my retailer. I don't necessarily have to stock it within my own warehouse. And we're seeing some incredible stories like that being told all over the world at the moment. It's interesting from a B2B perspective, because often it really depends on how advanced as a distributor or a brand from your actual B2C ordering portal, your B2B ordering portal or B2B platform or e-commerce site that you have. So the more advanced you are along that journey, is the easier it is to actually send third-party product into that ecosystem. So there's some fundamental things that you need in your market engine to be able to assist you in that. You need things like cost plus. You need things, individual line order adjustments and refunds and returns, individual category-based pricing architectures, the ability to do account-based checkout, all of those, fundamental things. And then what we're actually seeing when our customer is more advanced is they're still doing all of the complex pricing model within their B2B e-commerce engine or module. So this is where you do things like customer cohort pricing or different labeling pricing through the architecture. So it's the combination between a really good, solid B2B commerce platform and a marketplace platform that understands how B2B purchases work, that it's going to enable your growth and scale. But I see, just to drum the point home, Jason, if the next big growth strategy was B2C marketplace, I think the one very closely followed after it is going to be B2B.
Love it, because I couldn't agree with you more. I think that is a very underdeveloped market opportunity, is the concept of a B2B marketplace, but I agree with you. I think that the very nature of B2B transactions themselves and the way that B2B merchants and buyers interface with each other is a little bit more archaic in some respects. And so therefore there's a lot more complexity involved in it. Customer groups, customer price, MOQs, there's all sorts of request to quote. There's all sorts of components to that model, that B2B model, that make buying and selling inside that model a lot more complex than your traditional B2C model, where you typically have one SKU, one price for all customers. So it definitely brings a whole new level of complexity to it. Now, are you familiar with Balance Payments, the B2B focused payments platform? And is that something from a B2B perspective? So they focus solely on B2B payments as an infrastructure provider. Is that something that you guys are looking at in terms of integrating into Marketplacer to facilitate some of those B2B marketplace functionalities?
I am familiar with Balance Payments. I've had a couple of calls with the founder. And I think the ability, once it gets really complex, because if you think of if you had a B2B marketplace and every product was priced differently by customer, and there were different commission rates, it gets really complex. And that's the problem Marketplacer solves, on how much to pay each vendor and when to pay them. We're working through how that sort of journey into a third-party payment solution may work, whether we facilitate it ourselves. Today, we provide all of the information and it's very easy for our customers to pay supply. So it's strategically something we're deeply working through, and we see it as a really core growth opportunity, whether it's with a third party or it's something we provide into the future ourselves.
Brilliant. Love the flexible mindset. Now, what if you were to look out 12 to 18 months from now, what are some of the things inside the platform that you say, hey, we're really good at these 36 things, but there's these other 3 things that maybe we're not quite there yet, or we see a real demand in the market for, that we really want to build out our capability in these areas over the next 12 to 18 months? What is that at a very high level? What is that helicopter view of your tech and development roadmap look like?
Yeah, I think I know we'll continue down our core principles behind development, and that's complete API first and executed mentality. So whether it's your seller portal, whether it's every single feature across the platform, you'll be able to consume our APIs, which will give you additional flexibility into the future if you wanted to head down that custom path. I think we'll 100% continue around our connected strategy, around just making it easier to take the pain away from creating and rolling out this strategy. So if you're an existing e-commerce business, you can have a huge amount of confidence if you're on one of the major e-commerce platforms, that we're going to really focus on removing any friction it takes to get your technology live or to plug Marketplacer in. You'll see exactly the same strategy around our seller connection, is whether it's additional platforms or continue to double down on making it absolutely seamless to integrate sellers and for them to process orders. I think that's the fundamental problems that we solve, and we'll continue to focus on them.
That makes me very happy, because I love the word pre-integration, or I love the term pre-integration, because that is one of the bane of e-commerce life in many respects, is custom endpoint integrations. So the fact that you have your API layer, and then you said you've got an event layer, so I'm guessing that's referencing webhooks. So you've got a full API layer, full webhooks layer from an event management perspective, and then the queuing perspective inside the platform, which is great. You take away and you hide a lot of that pain within your infrastructure so that merchants don't have to deal with that bespoke integrated pain. I applaud you on taking that pre-integrated approach, just because I think it makes it easier for you to onboard merchants into your ecosystem, but it also makes it easier for merchants to onboard you into their ecosystem. So it's truly a win-win. So I applaud your efforts there. And look, it sounds like you guys are going from strength to strength. You've got a very clear customer-led roadmap from demands from the market. You guys obviously have put over a decade's worth of work into the platform as it sits today, and it's no wonder that you're winning big deals left, right, and center. It sounds very well deserved from the effort you guys are putting in and how you're giving back to the market more broadly. So congratulations, and I wish you guys every success. And I'll continue to watch. Like I said, I feel like I hear your name almost every single day in the press. And that's a testament to how much good work you're doing in the market. So congratulations. And I'll be watching with great interest over the next 12 to 18 months to see where Marketplacer goes next.
Oh, thanks, Jason. And I just appreciate you having me as part of your community, and look forward to listening to more great podcasts.
Thanks for listening to the At the Coalface podcast. If you want more At the Coalface, you can subscribe to our premium e-commerce and digital newsletter, At the Coalface Digest.